looking at the goals that say you set for that day and seeing if that was accomplished. If so, what could you have changed to kind of make it a more successful day?
And if you're overstimulated, you're overworked, and you're overstressed, you're not going to be nearly as ready as you would like to be when those opportunities actually fall into your lap and you have the opportunity to take them.
Yo, what's up, Quest fam? Coach Noah here on the podcast for cultivating wellness and exploring topics that enhance our mindset and high performance. That was a clip from today's episode as Coach Manny and I got into a multitude of different health subjects in a rapid-fire Q&A, laying down our thoughts and perspectives related to these subjects. If this is your first time here in the show, we'd like to welcome you here today and also ask that you follow the show so that you never miss any of our educational freebies and well-being insights. Coach Manny and I hope that you enjoy the show today and look forward to answering any of your questions and hearing all of your feedback. So without further ado, let's jump into the show.
Good afternoon, CrossFit Loveland.
Yo, what's up, Quest fam?
How's it going? So we had a topic. It was a Food for Thought Friday. This previous Friday, we asked you guys, and thank you all for your responses. We had a ton of responses. We busted out some of the ones that I think were really spoke to us. What's happening, Dr. J? We miss you. So we, So the question was: would you rather be good at multiple things, or be great at one thing? And I think we had some really good responses. So I think just figuring out what speaks to you. And I think what was so great about this was there was no wrong or right answer. There was just, what kind of resonates with you mostly,
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we want to get into is your guys' opinions. So thank you for chiming in and putting your opinions on the board, commenting and engaging with this sequence. So we got a couple of responses here that we're going to share for the audience. One of the responses that we got is that this is a great topic. When I think about CrossFit, I'd like to be excellent at all movements. However, still considering I'll have my strong areas and my weak ones in life, I think it's really beneficial to be good at many things so that you can bring value in many different spaces. With that said, being excellent at one thing to me speaks of my dream, my lane, my calling, my passion. When I work within this area, I'm able to bring the most impact to those around me and the world. I think that's an incredible answer. Thank you for that answer, for chiming in, because you touched on both aspects, whether it's being great in multiple areas versus being good, in multiple areas versus being great in just one or two things. And that's extremely opinionated as far as like what you're really going for. And I think that you hit on some incredible points there as far as your dream. So if you're dreaming about something, and in my opinion on that is that, yes, you want to be focused, you want to be laser focused on those couple of things so that you can get great at those couple of things and you can benefit those and support those who will buy into those concepts. Because we want to be in the reorder business, correct? Mm-hmm. We don't want to be in just a manufacturing business and kicking out products that aren't going anywhere, but we want people to reorder that consistency and to be consistent with it. So I love that one as far as that response goes. So Thank you. Who did that come from, by the way?
It came from Jessica Smith. She's one of our athletes here. She's a phenomenal athlete in general and just a great person. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen her upset. She always comes here, always super energetic, super smiley, very encouraging to all the other athletes. And it's always hard to step into a new gym, especially when you don't know someone. So for her to come in here and have that attitude and that presence, that's amazing. So, and I think, like we said, I don't think there is a wrong answer. I think it's great to have both, but it is what you're calling. You can, by having being diverse in what you know and the knowledge that you can present, that's great, because now I can reach out and I could speak to this group who likes Olympic lifting, this group who likes gymnastics, and say this group who's more running based, endurance based, and I think that definitely adds value. But I also think that can contribute to your level of mastery, or being great at one thing, in the sense that you take all of this experience and all of this knowledge and you just add it to the toolbox per se of what you have. I think that the more that we do have in our toolbox, now again, we can kind of expand more, but then, just going back to it, you also need to develop that. So instead of like, you being, like a dog with a squirrel, you can really just hone in on that skill, and then you get deeper into that level of mastery. So say if you were just going to be an Olympic weightlifting coach, you learn the lifts, right? Now you look into it more. Well, how do I master that? Now you look into the biomechanics of the lifts, and you want to say, what's the most optimum positions to practice to get us ready for this? And then you could break it down and say, they're missing in their pull, or they're missing in their catch, or they're slow off the floor. And then you could slowly start to just put those pieces together, and then you can kind of add that to your toolbox in your mastery, and you can make that something that really speaks highly of what you do and what you can give to someone else.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. And thank you for the comment. Thank you for being part of our community, being here, sharing in this collective to live life well. That is amazing. Moving on to our next comment in our response that we got is, I vote either, depending on your personality and desire. So what a great statement coming right out the gate. Some people have such a strong passion for something that it pushes them to the points of excellence, past the failures, past the difficulties, and all the ways the point of mastery. While others have a passion for many things. Strong curiosity propels them to constantly seek out the new. They are keenly aware of their capabilities, and that they are always looking for opportunities to learn something new. So we need both in this world. So this is kind of another double-edged sword where you view good on both sides of the spectrum, which I can certainly see that. And thank you for chiming in and to add that comment. Who was that comment from?
So that was actually from my sister. And to let you know about my sister, she studied psychology in undergrad, and then she got her master's in family and marriage therapy. So when it comes to topics like this, she loves them, absolutely loves them. So she ate it right up. And I really think she like nailed it on the head with the personality and the desire, because for the longest time I always felt like it was better for me to be great at several things. Growing up through high school, I worked several jobs. I obviously worked for my dad majority of my high school, but then in some summers I worked at a produce warehouse. I worked at a screen printing shop. I did different sorts of construction. I worked, in AutoCAD. I did customer service for both DirecTV and for AT&T. And all of those different jobs helped me for the next one in one way, shape, or form. So I now that I'm in the fitness industry and I'm dealing with people, the customer service part of it was extremely helpful to myself, because now I can listen to people, listen to what their needs are, and I can take them in and now understand kind of what they really want. But I'm not going to try and be a master at customer service, you know what I mean? I couldn't even sit still in the cubicle for more than an 8-hour shift, so much less like really making that my calling and passion, and same with the produce, same with the screen printing. It's great to have that knowledge, but in order to be the best and to give people what they truly, truly need, that's when you need to just step aside and just hone in on that craft and just become the best that you can be at that.
And it's such an excellent point that you make. And I love that parallel, because we have to embrace the multitude of different tasks and skills and practices that we go through. If you take the food industry, for example, you have to be willing to multitask, and you might be called upon to go from the front of the house to the back of the house to help out whatever that task is oriented to having you do. But at the same time, if you're laser focused on just those couple of things and you only have specific tasks, maybe that maybe you're a better manager and you can delegate from that perspective and lead from the head down, so to say, and how to delegate and do these specific things, but you're not really good on the ground level. So it really depends on your personality. I like the contrast here and the different opinions that we have created off of this topic, because I think it can be very powerful in just seeing the different perspectives and having people kind of engage in that topic. So very cool. I love it.
Exactly. So, at the end of the day, it's what works best for you. We can sit here, we can tell you everything under the sun, what's worked for us, but that might not work for you. And you could take something, you could play around with it. That's the beauty of life. And going through this journey is seeing what works best and seeing if being great at multiple things or a master at one thing, is which one works for you. And if you can integrate both or you integrate more and less, it really doesn't matter. So thanks again, guys, for joining us. Thanks again for the feedback and the questions. We're going to try and get consistent with the Food for Thought Friday. It's just sometimes nice just to make you think about these questions. That's something that I think about way too much, but my mind travels at 1,000 miles per hour. So I'm going to do the legwork for you. So if you guys could just keep providing with what we're bringing, that would be awesome. Cool.
Play around with it. Enjoy the experience. Create some experience. Become a scientist and your own best coach.
All right. Well, let's keep this thing going.
Cool. Rolling on to the next topic. So the next topic that we're going to talk about is unplugging what's bugging. Okay?
Ooh, love it.
And this is something that we just created. We're going to talk about the tips to unplug the social drugs.
The social drugs.
And here are a couple of great tips. I know you shared this with the CrossFit Loveland fam, and we talked about this tip a little bit, but I think it's very critical. And let's just go through a couple of punch cut topics. You share one, I'll share one, and we'll just sort of build off of that.
That is perfect. Noah,
pick it up, man.
Do you spend a lot of time on social media?
Well, I certainly spend my fair share between the podcast, between trying to build a brand, with Team FitQuest, and then trying to build this brand with TrueQuest and engaging with the community. And I think it is absolutely an essential part of marketing this day and age. And if you're not out there doing that, I think you're missing the concept of what this. Of where we're going in this day and age. And it may be different years from now, but right now this is where we're at, and it's at the touch of our fingertips. So absolutely yes. And I try to limit my engagement, and we'll talk about some of these tips, and some of these tips I do actually employ. But when it gets down to business and to the nitty gritty of things, of trying to promote that and to build off of it, I think it can be essential. So what's the pros and the cons here?
Pros and cons. Oh my gosh, man. I sometimes spend way too much time. I'm like, oh, I want to look at this exercise. And then I see a bunch of dog videos. And then I see a bunch of old school. Like, all right, so you guys, anyone who's a football fan, you're going to love me, but they have a NFL Throwbacks Instagram handle. And that thing is amazing. Okay, Mark Brunell. You remember Mark Brunell?
Sure.
Right? I totally forgot about that guy.
Did he play for the Jags for a while?
Played for the Jags, man.
To their first Super Bowl
or
whatever?
He did, dude.
Okay.
Gosh, it's so good. All right, so check it out. Anyway, so versus I would say on this topic, since what we were just kind of talking about, is being conscious of how much time you spend on social media. I think that's the first thing, because for me, it's such a habit. It's such a habit in the sense that I come here, I wait for class to start, I'm scrolling. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I get home, I sit on my bed, I start scrolling. I go to sleep, right before sleep, I have all the lights off, TV off, all of that stuff, I'm scrolling. So I feel until we can make ourselves conscious or like aware of it at least, we're going to just kind of keep swimming in this hole, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a incredible point as far as your overall awareness and just being aware of what you're doing on there, because that's key. I like this second point, the second tip, as far as do not do it while you're eating.
Don't do it.
And this is one thing that I do and that I've promoted with the family, is that I won't do it. Well, all devices and everything are shut down. The TV's not running in the background. And I think that this has to be essential in order to be present and to not only engage with what's happening with the family for me, but to engage in the moment, to appreciate, to be mindful of what you're putting into your bodies. Engage with those other sensations as far as, smell and taste and all those other things go.
Yeah.
And it completely ruins it if you got, one family member or multiple family members going on their phones and checking, to see who's got the likes, or seeing what Rachel is doing,
Rachel.
on Instagram because she doesn't have a job. Or
Dang
anything.
it, Rachel.
Right. But it's so essential. So I love that one. What's the next one that rolls up?
All right. I would say, and this kind of goes into it, is don't get hung up on the comments. This is something that I've done recently, and it's helped me out tremendously. And that's on Facebook or Instagram. There's something that happened. Man, you can find some comedy gold in the comments, and it's so funny. But if it's a serious issue, like let's just say politically, if there's something a celebrity did, or let's just say if it's something that I did, you can work yourself up. And I would find myself so much like seeing these comments and not knowing if these people are internet trolls, if they're being honest, if they're being sarcastic. I would work myself up so much, and I would get so mad, and I never want to comment because I think going back and forth like that can sometimes be almost childish, and that's my honest opinion. Is it's like two dogs, right? Mm-hmm. And be separated by a fence, and they keep just barking at each other. Sure. Like that's exactly how it is. It's like tear down the fence and see what actually happens.
Well, and I think there's an appropriate place for the proper engagement. For me, I think I avoid this one unless it's forecasted with some support, towards the brand or whatever.
Totally.
I'll give them certainly extend my gratitude and give them a thank you. But outside of that, if it's just miscellaneous jargon and it's just stuff that's just being thrown out there, or
controversial topics.
Sure,
that's where we see it the most. Dude.
I just stay away from all that stuff, man. It's just like news, man. I don't watch the news. I haven't watched the news in years because it's majority of it's negative. They don't shine a good positive light on.
It's at the end.
Things.
It's at the end of the news, so you have to stick through all the crap before you get to it.
And by then you're just worn out.
You're just toast. Next on the list, we have something I know I'm guilty of, is having my phone immediately by my bed or directly by my bed, and to add to that, scrolling or looking at social media before bed or as soon as I get up. And I'm terrible at doing this. I know my thoughts, but what are your thoughts on this, Noah?
Man, first thing in the morning, that's a tough one. I've heard of a couple of theories that seem to work for people, such as like putting it on airplane mode. If you have any type of morning routine, such as I do, I have a tendency to walk it as far away as possible, because I know most of us use our phones as an alarm or a device to wake up to, so it's awfully difficult to avoid that when it's popping up. The other thing that I do that's super helpful, I try to delegate specific time to check social media, so I turn off my notifications so I don't have those red blinking dots trying to draw me in to check out however many likes I got here or there or what's going on in whoever's world. So those are just a couple of tips that seem to help me.
Sure.
But I'm sure there are tons of them out there.
No, and I agree. I think keeping the phone away from your bed, and I think it's just creating a good habit with that, because I have tried that in the past, and I'll have the phone straight across the room. I'll grab my phone, and then go plop myself right back on my bed. You know what I mean? So I think it's understanding that you do need to have your phone away from you. But then once you do wake up, then that goes into a whole different topic of routine when waking up. But I think there's just so many negative health effects through looking at your phone late at night or first thing in the morning. But yeah, that can easily dictate your mood first thing in the morning. Let's just say if you see something that you don't like or something that kind of really grinds your gears and it frustrates you. That's not the way you want to wake up. You know what I mean? You want to wake up with just some alone time. Maybe you're with your spouse, you're with your family. You can kind of reflect on the goals for the day. There's other things you can do than just immediately wake up, and go right to the gram or Facebook or the Twitter sphere or whatever and see what so and so's doing, or how many likes you got when you're sleeping, grinding, getting those likes in bed. Love it.
For sure, man. I couldn't agree more.
All right, and then I think this goes hand in hand, is just setting a limit when you look at it. I think it's pretty relevant. Don't just sit there, the entire time. And like 5 and 6 are both pretty relevant. Choose a different habit, right? Try reading. Try going on a walk. Try using some different app, something that's maybe more beneficial for you. Try doing some research. I mean, there's so much stuff on the internet that instead we just sit around and we just look at stupid things and mindless things. I mean, trying to interact your brain a little bit, you know what I mean? And just stay away from anything from social media. Why do you think, and I don't mean any disrespect, but why do you think it's so easy for kids to be entertained right nowadays? Because you throw this device in front of them and boom, their mind is traveling at millions of miles an hour because they're so fascinated, they're so drawn into whatever content is on this screen, and it's fascinating, but I think we could still be using everything that we're looking at, all the time that we spend on it. And I keep referring back to myself because I spend way too much time on it, and I have started to devote some of that other time to listen to more podcasts, to watch some more instructional videos on, say, gymnastics moves, weightlifting moves, anything gym related, even if it's how to run a business more efficiently. And even if it is on YouTube, but there's just a blank picture, but you're still listening. And I've learned a ton more, and I've been able to do a lot more because I've essentially just set down my phone and let my imagination kind of work,
I certainly agree. I think it's valuable to delegate the time that you need to unplug and really situate the time that you do plug in to things that are credible to your life, that can benefit you in the aspect of growth and cultivating your own wellness and sharing some knowledge with somebody. We see it all too often, and having a personal background in customer service, the thing that really gets me the most is when people are so disconnected, they don't even know where they are in their presence, in their environment, and just engaging with people. And sometimes I'll just leave my phone in the vehicle if I'm going shopping, so that I can make an effort to engage with individuals, whether it's that cashier who's ringing me up and I'm noticing their name tag and I'm referring to them by their name and thanking them for their service, or if I'm just bumping into people who might not be on their devices. But you see so many like tech zombies just wandering around aimlessly, just checking their mail or just sitting there in lines like they got nothing better to do, and just engage in the present moment. So that's something that I'll do very mindfully. So be mindful about what's going on.
Yeah. And I think, and I think we're also caught up in work, right? Especially you and I, Noah, we're both trying to brand our businesses, and, what better way to do that through Instagram and through Facebook. So, I guarantee you there's even times with yourself where you're like, oh, I gotta post something. I gotta kind of stay up to it and say it was a busy day. And you're like, man, I didn't get to it. But now, I'm either chilling on the couch or I'm laying in my bed and I'm like, oh, shoot, that's a good idea. So sometimes that's even hard. And I've heard so many successful individuals who there is that shut off time, right? We always say don't use electronics an hour before bed, because it stimulates your mind, yada yada yada. Well, yeah, that's true to an extent, but do something mindless, right? Watch it's not going to say, all right, kids, you got to go to bed an hour before, because we can't watch a movie because I don't want to be overstimulated before bed, right? But I think choosing that other habit and choosing something else that's going to benefit you or your family, or like hang out with your wife, or go for a walk, or just sit in silence, I mean, I'm sure you're huge on meditation, so even just kind of reaching that at a good time, winding down, reflecting on the day, looking at the goals that say you set for that day and seeing if that was accomplished. If so, what could you have changed to kind of make it a more successful day,
Yeah, I like that. And something that comes up for me in what you mentioned is you mentioned some credible factors that you could pencil in your routine that are really simple and easy. I'm sure you guys have books upon books laying around in the house or on the shelf that you can read, or even get into audiobooks. Audiobooks are great. That would be a different way than just sitting there and binging and scrolling, looking at material that's really not feeding you any information. But I like that you say, reflecting on something. Like perhaps you reflect on the day, or you're writing a gratitude journal at the end of the day, really forecasting a better intention with what you're doing with your time, what you're doing with your life. And it allows you an opportunity to go back to some of those older methods that really stimulate more than one sense. We're writing, that's almost like a lost art. But really, when it comes to goal-oriented kind of tasks and stuff, I'm a firm believer that when you write it down, it really makes it real, and putting it on paper. If you can put the things on paper and then really speak to that in your own writing, it just has a different dynamic to bringing those things to fruition. So I think that's a great point. I think we need to do more of those things and dial back to some of the older methods, because some of them are flawless, and they can take you to dynamics that in dimensions and realities that you can only dream of. So do more of that. Those are our fun tips. We also got another fun rapid fire section to kind of ramble off. Feel free to comment, drop your opinions on this next little session. But we got some great little questions here. Coach Manny kind of put this together, and this would be kind of cool and fun.
Q&A. So, and also we're going to be kind of using these as questions once we start getting some guests in. We already have about 3 or 4 guests that are going to be coming on the show, and we're going to kind of chat with them about their life, their experiences, and whatnot. So, what better way to find out if these questions are worth it than asking them, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right.
So let's fire it off, man.
All right, baby. All right. So first things first, Noah. I know you love this. All right. Would you rather do 5 minutes straight of barbell thrusters or burpees?
You absolutely know that it's burpees for me. The demise for me is thrusters. I don't know what it is about that movement. And for all of you out there that don't know what a thruster is, you basically have a barbell, and it's on your front rack position, which the barbell's rested across your front deltoids, and your elbows are pointed straight out, horizontal to the floor, and you're doing a front squat, and then you're basically coming up out of your front squat right into a press, pressing all the way up over your head, and you're repeating that movement is comfortable as you can possibly get that.
That is the most beautiful example of thrusters I think I've ever heard. So next time I do a video, I'm gonna have this narrative in there, because that was beautiful. I'd also have to say burpees, right? I mean, there's so many people in here that absolutely hate burpees, and I think that's what makes CrossFit so beautiful. Is you're good and you're comfortable with certain movements. Sure. I mean, I
can pace burpees.
Yeah, exactly.
Thrusters I can't pace.
So thrusters, right? We did that 50 thrusters, and man, that was that bar, dude. It just killed me. It just sunk me. I mean, going back to your gravity analogy, I think gravity definitely got a hold of me there. But I'd say burpees. I'm sure there's some other psychos out there who'd probably say thrusters. They'd probably say both thrusters and burpees back to back. So kudos to you. That might be a workout.
All right, number 2, favorite book or author, man. This one's interesting. What do you got for us?
All right, so I'm a huge fan of John Grisham. He was a guy that I read a lot in high school. My favorite one is called The Bleachers, and pretty much it's just this book about this football team. I can't remember. They weren't a great football team. They were good, but they come back for one of their friends' funeral. and they just reminisce about the high school days. And, I don't always sit around and just reminisce about high school, but, high school athletics was a huge, huge part in my life. And anytime I get to kind of, stimulate my brain in that sense where I get to think of all the wonderful memories it brought, the wins, the losses, the learning from failures, and, the celebration of successes, it just always resonates well with me. And then he also has this other one. It's called The Innocent Man. It's about this Major League Baseball player that was accused of murder when he really didn't murder the suspect, or I guess the suspect, right? No, not a suspect. What is it? The victim.
The victim.
Yes, the victim.
Sure.
And so it was really good. He writes really well. I kind of need to get back into reading a lot of the stuff that he does, but I really enjoyed it in the bleachers. I mean, especially at a young age, and I didn't like reading. That really was one of my favorites. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Sticking with the athletic platform, I like it. I'm going to take a different direction with this, and I'm going to say Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. This was one of the most stimulating books that I have ever read, and it dates back a while. Viktor Frankl is basically a psychiatrist, and he goes through his personal memoirs when he was at the Nazi death camps and basically lost every entire individual who was ever attached to him. And he dissected the process of the mindset from a psychiatrist's standpoint throughout his entire stay. And he actually was a survivor, went on to thrive and to write these books and to create these theories. Very fascinating, the details that he goes into. But he basically, like, the summation of the story talks about, like, those individuals, like, he could see their brain shift, like, once they gave up, like, on their life and just gave up on having a purpose in life, no matter what that was, even if they were, stuck in these camps and treated like slaves and the worst of the worst, and their family was just getting picked off. The fact that they had a purpose, and such as like Viktor Frankl, the author himself, during those memoirs, like, he just made a purpose and meaning out of everything that he did, and that shift in mindset like held him through everything. And there was some very stimulating factors. But if you haven't read that, folks, that's a good classic, and that one will turn your perception and paradigm about how you tend to think and view your reality. So that one's cool for me.
I love it. And honestly, man, anything related to the Holocaust is extremely interesting. I mean, the event itself is unfortunate, but it was such a huge part of history that anytime you get to really dissect about these people and what they were experiencing, especially a psychologist who saw the mental struggle,
psychiatrist,
who saw like the mental struggle of this. I mean, I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah, the history tied in with the educational factor is very fascinating, and that was a good one for me.
Awesome, cool. Well, moving on.
Next?
All right, man. So we're gonna go pretty basic here. Dogs or cats?
Dogs or cats? Well, I'm going to have to go with cats here just because they've been less maintenance in my life. And here's the reason why. So, background story on this. I got attacked by a black chow when I was 4 years old, and I've always had this almost that inner sense of fear that you think dogs can kind of sense.
Yeah.
Just because I'm uneasy around them, jumping up on me,
sure,
biting and stuff. I got over 53 scars on my body from getting mauled by a dog when I was 4 years old. So,
fair enough.
So that's the main reason why for me.
Fair enough. Well, I think it was kind of the same thing. I mean, I've always been a dog person. I grew up with Chihuahuas, though, and those things are annoying. Oh my gosh!
Is that a dog or is that a cat?
I would consider them cats, dude. I mean, they're a bunch of a-holes, and I guarantee you, if they were bigger, if they had a bigger jaw, they would be far more responsible for bites and attacks than any other dog. But same thing on the cat. When we first got Coda, we took it over to one of our roommates' houses, and she had a cat at the time, and the cat went psycho, like totally went psycho, came after me. I screamed like a girl and ran in the room, and the cat actually ended up clawing her because she was like trying to like calm her down, clawed her, lost the claw in my roommate's leg. And it was crazy. So I think the sharp claws is kind of what scares me. And they're so calm, it's like dogs, you can kind of see it, but cats, they're so calm and they can seem like they could just flip.
Well,
You know
they
what
do
I mean?
say that a cat, say you died in your house, they said that a cat will actually physically eat you, where a dog will die right next to you. So, I don't know, food for
Love
thought.
dogs. Love dogs. Yeah, food for cats, maybe.
Anyways, moving on. Okay, how to handle criticism. This is a good one. What
I like
what kind of
this.
technique or practice might you have? to
I like
handle
this. I think the biggest thing is being honest with yourself, right? You know, if someone criticizes me, I think being honest with yourself and not being so defensive, okay? Because we always just want to be so defensive. We're stuck in our ways. You know, we have our ways because they've either worked for us or we know that they've worked in some way, shape, or form. So, you know, whenever there's criticism my way, I'll probably get pissed off right away. I mean, that's just how I am. But then I will take some time, internalize it, think about it, think, am I overreacting, or do I have the right to act this way? And then at the end of the day, be honest and think, well, is this true? Like, I mean, I know I don't work out. So if people tell me that I'm weak, I mean, am I going to tell them, no, I'm really strong, but I don't work out? You know? So I think it's using those two things as, is just being honest, you know? And like, you don't really need to care what other people think about you, sure. But sometimes people tell you things because maybe they want to help you, or maybe they do need to bring out those weaknesses for you to work on, you know?
Sure. I like that. I can relate to some of the undertones. I would say for me, it would be to find that empathic balance, becoming more empathic, basically putting yourself in somebody else's shoes, and even taking yourself out of your own shoes and being able to see a broader perspective. Sure. You know, because I think that's pretty credible when we look at the big picture. Somebody might have a better idea than you, and you've got to be willing to test those theories and be adaptable to change. And so many of us are afraid of change, but I think being empathic has the undertones of being able to accept that change a little bit more easily.
Exactly. Well, and I think empathy is such a huge thing, and I think we get that confused with sympathy, you know what I mean? So just being empathetic of other people's thoughts is definitely something that we need to just be open to.
Yeah, for
Right.
sure. I agree.
All right, next we're going to keep cruising through this. What is your current diet, and why do you like this diet? Or let's just say eating habits, and why do you like these eating habits?
Man, I'm so passionate about this one as far as diet and the controversial issue between diet and nutrition, because diet is such a temporary thing for many people. A lot of people have experience with yo-yo, theories as far as, they lose this much on a diet and then they gain this much back. And it's just this constant variable that they really can't put a handle on. So, for me, this is extremely holistic. This is individualized, catered to the individual. But what I have found to work for me, and what I kind of continue, is like a loose-ended keto, but it's more just low carb than anything else. I would say mine would be closer to the Atkins diet than anything else, because that low carb, higher in the protein, really seems to work for me. It really seems to fill me, and I will just speak from experience. I went completely, in my entire household, I went completely vegan for 90 days, and I crashed. I went into iron deficiency. I had brain fog. I mean, just the heavy amount of carbs that I was intaking just wasn't appropriate for me. So you really got to try it, and you got to become your own scientist here and your own best coach and figure out what works for you. But that's what works for me. What works for you?
Totally. So it's funny because everyone learns about paleo through CrossFit, right? But I had learned about paleo before I even learned about CrossFit and started CrossFit.
So you're probably familiar with Rob Wolf's stuff.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. So Rob Wolf was one of the front runners. I actually, when I first got into paleo, I followed. This was back in like 2009. I think I was listening to Abel James, and he does the Fat Burning Man show, and he's somebody that I always kind of looked up to because he was very intelligent. He walked the walk as well, and he had interviewed at that time. It was Dallas and Melissa Hartwig, and that's when I got into It Starts With Food, and then ended up looking into Lauren Cordain stuff, and Lauren Cordain was known to be kind of the godfather of it. And fun fact, Lauren Cordain actually used to be he was like the dean of exercise science department at Colorado State. So in his book, he mentions Fort Collins. So I think it was kind of neat because that's when, several years or a couple of years later when I moved up there is all. Anyway, so
kind of close to home.
Yeah. So I thought it was pretty neat. And so anyway, so I really like paleo personally. It's lower-ish carb because you are kind of taking out a lot of grains. You're moderating your starches, but then you're taking out dairy is a big one. So between grains and dairy and then sugar, is definitely the three top ones that I think are the biggest challenges for a lot of people, right? Because if you go, like we talked about, if you go look in a grocery store, you could see how much sugar is in everything. You could see how much dairy plays a role, and then the biggest thing is like grain, some sort of grain. But it was pretty basic, and it was pretty easy for me. Just eat a ton of veggies and some meats.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the biggest takeaway is find a diet that feels like you're not restricting some of the joys and some of the things that you really find palatable. And if you can find a diet out there that's doing you justice and leading you into living life well, and at the same time you're not really restricting too many of the things that you don't want to eat, and there's so many variable recipes that you can find in all these different diets. Just find what works for you, but I think it's an important wellness and health topic in and of itself.
Sure. And I think the biggest thing is what's worked best for me is 80-20, right? 80% clean, 20% flexible.
Well, you gotta live, people.
You gotta live, man. You know what I mean? Like you definitely have to. And hats off to those that eat clean 24/7, and maybe they feel good, and that's where the experimentation comes from, right? They said, all right, I tried to go back to my favorite donuts and pizza, and it just destroyed me every single time. So now, I'm just gonna eliminate that. I'm gonna do maybe something a little bit different. So see what works best for you, and that's why we don't really like to call it a diet, because diets are short term. We want to build a lifestyle, right? Yeah,
absolutely. And kudos to you guys who do have that much consistency and discipline, because there are a lot of folks out there that do that, and we're striving to be like you, but at the same time we're striving to be human.
Oh,
and we are perfectly imperfect.
Oh yeah.
Anyways, next topic. Let's go into this perfectly imperfect by segueing that and saying, the first bad habit that people should change, and why. Like what would that be for you?
I think being negative. I mean, I think negativity is so common nowadays that it's so common that it's like a way of life. We don't even think about it. It's immediately if someone's doing something different, someone's doing something better, there's never positivity going their way. And I've seen it firsthand. In the CrossFit community where a CrossFit is a community, right? It's kind of like a fraternity where I can go to so many different cities and I could go drop in at a CrossFit gym,
Absolutely.
But then it seems like there's just a bunch of gangs here, it's like, we're throwing up West Side, they're East Side, they're North Side, and
a lot of people clicking up.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. And then it's like, I heard like this gym is doing this. Nah, they're gonna fail, or they're doing it wrong. Where it's like, why can't I just go to this gym and drop in? I have several other friends that go to gyms around here, and I mean, instead of being negative towards them, and instead of trying to think that there's this small little island that I want all these members, just to be happy and spread positivity, because at the end of the day, we're all trying to make better human beings. And I think if we stick to that goal, then the positivity stays. But I mean, that's just one example of how kind of negativity can be such a bad habit. And that kind of goes back to our social media thing,
Yeah, absolutely. I like to throw a highlight in there that's coming from a different perspective, and we'll just lay this episode to rest, and we'll talk about rest while we lay it to rest on this last issue. So I would say the first bad habit that people should kick kind of ties into one of two things, like get rest, sleep more, people. Like people don't sleep enough, but not only that, like stop sleeping in, like wake up and kill the morning, because the more productive you are in the morning, the more individuals you're beating that are just sleeping in and wasting their time. We all got the same 24 at the end of the day, and it's really what we do with that 24 hours, but we all have to recover as well. And if you're overstimulated, you're overworked, and you're overstressed, you're not going to be nearly as ready as you would like to be when those opportunities actually fall into your lap and you have the opportunity to take them.
Sure. No, and I think, and it's funny you say that, because even just today, Ben Bergeron posted about, sleep quality, and he's like, we think it's cool, right? We're like on the grind. Oh, I go to bed at midnight and I'm up at 3:45. We think that that's a cool thing to do, and
it's
really
socially accepted.
Yeah.
We actually take pride in being busy, being overworked, and being overwhelmed, and that needs to change.
It does. We're gonna be broken pretty soon. You know what I mean? Whether that's our mental health, physical health, we need rest. I mean, there's a reason why we survived so many years without electricity, right? And there was that common thought, rise with the sun, sleep with the sun.
Sure.
If you guys have a question for us, follow us on Instagram, True Quest Podcast. That's TRU Quest Podcast. Drop us a question. Give us a follow. We want to listen to your stories. We want to listen to what works for you. So if there's anything in this podcast that you think is absolutely stupid or that you really love, please give us some feedback. We would absolutely appreciate it. Till next time, sir.
Stay true to your quest.
True Quest.
Hey there, friends. This is where we have the opportunity to share in our gratitude. Thanking you for spending this part of your day with us, because without you, none of this would be possible. If you haven't yet followed the show, subscribe to your listening platform, whatever that is on your device now, and tell us what you would like to hear more of. You can also reach us with your thoughts and questions by dropping us an email at truequestpodcast@gmail.com. That's TRUQUEST podcast@gmail.com. Also follow us on Instagram at TrueQuest Podcast, TRUQUEST Podcast. And until next time, my friends, stay true to your quest.